I'm a big believer in trying to create psychologically safe and expressive environments, and how we do that through vulnerability. And my dad kind of like was my rugby coach, and he'd verbally abused me. And then I remember 13, him going about, oh, do you want to come for a run of an evening? So for me, it was like, oh, yeah. So for me, it was a sense of belonging, sense of togetherness. And it was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And we went out like 7:30, winter's night, it's dark, I'm 13 years old. And about 10 minutes in the run, my dad just goes at his pace, and he's going, and I'm falling behind. And I'm getting scared and fearful. It's dark. We're like on the edge of a woods. I'm playing all stories in my head. And he just goes, and I'm trying to keep up, trying not to cry, because I'm upset, because I've had this sort of safety within me that I'm going with my dad, as togetherness. This is like, you know, this soft feeling in your stomach of acceptance. He's asked me, you know, and then he just goes off, and I'm trying to breathe and run, and I'm trying not to cry because he's left me. And all I can do is try and keep up enough so I can try and keep within about 100 meters away to see the route we're going on. So if anything did happen to me, I hoped that I could shout. And lost him, managed to get on the straight route home, and got there, and I walked indoors, and he's there. And my mum's like, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, like try not to cry. And I literally walked in, tried to keep eye contact on my dad. He looked around, he went, so where were you, fat shit? And I was just like, started to just swallow hard, because it was like, do I cry, or I'm steaming with anger right now? And he walked off, and I just like got some water, tried to choke back the tears. And then I went upstairs for a shower. He opened his bedroom door. He's like, you're not even going to do press-ups and sit-ups? That's why you look like that? And it was like, okay, wow. And then this just escalated. This went on for like a few more years. It got on a grand scale, because he was our rugby coach as well. And it got on to quite a grand scale there, where he would do things like this in front of all my friends, all my peers. And when the parents were there watching on, he did a couple of things that were really humiliating. Partnered with, like, at that time as well, in school circuit, I remember having a private maths lesson, a silent maths lesson, and going up to the teacher's desk when I didn't have a clue what to do with one of the questions. And she asked the class to look up, asked me to say the question out loud again. And then she said, oh, can you stand on my desk? And I stood on the desk, and she said, look up. And there was a piece of cotton coming from the ceiling in a noose. And she said, put your head through the hole, please. And I'm like, God, I think I must have been 10. And at that time, you didn't question these things. You know, we weren't as outwardly vocal as kids are these days. You just kind of got on with it. So you put your head through it, and she says, can you say out loud to class backwards, red backwards? So I was like, duh. She went, you say it again. I was like, duh. She went, exactly. Get down off my desk, stop being so stupid, and go back to the question. So like there was this theme of humiliation amongst your peers from grown-ups, and it became a thing where I got a full authority of the teacher doing it. You go out, parents talk about it, and 30 years ago, this was like, get on with it. And that was generally the consensus of parents back then, was just like, yeah, whatever, just get on with it. That's what it was like. So for me, it was like, this is just a part of growing up. You just get on with it. And I had that with my dad, and it ended up boiling up when I was about 16. We had our first major punch up on a rugby pitch, where he deemed this as character building. He didn't really understand the psychological side the part this was playing. And I remember him coming in for forearm to my face during a touch rugby session, and I was just like completely shocked again of like what just happened. I've literally just had my nose smashed by my own father, and the red came up, and I'd held in for 3 or 4 years all this anger, and we ended up having a massive fight on the floor at the training ground. We had to be separated by a load of people. And I grew up with that. So that's part of it. I grew up with an uncle that from 8 or 9 years old would come round, get me in a headlock until I passed out. And then he'd say to my mum, you're bringing up a pussy. He's too soft. And this went on for years until I was about 14, and I punched him in the bollocks. And he was like, oh, like there was a shock, and he stopped. But what was happening, Zach, getting back to your original question, was this was harnessing so much anger around men. And it was harnessing this need to prove a point. To be accepted by men had to be that I had to physically dominate in some sort of area. Had to be that I had to prove myself constantly.